Welcome into the Inside Scoop. We are live from Nashville, Tennessee, and today is Sunday, March 9th. I'm your host, Josh Newberg, and we have a lot to cover today. The dead period is over. We had some big visit weekends happening all over the country, but we're going to cover the biggest right here. We got Oregon, Michigan, and Tennessee. But first, let's talk about the biggest developments from a busy recruiting weekend. Now, the dead period is over. Visits are allowed back on, and we're seeing big visit weekends all across the country, which means we're going to see action on the trail. So here are what I thought were the biggest developments from the weekend. Maybe you guys think differently. Let me know in the comment section below. But let's start with Jalen Waters pulling off the trifecta. The former FSU commit, then committed to UF, then commits to you-know-where, the Miami Hurricanes. Jalen Waters is a talented four-star corner from Armwood High School in Tampa, Florida, and he is now committed to all three of the powerhouse in-state programs. Now, he did decommit from Florida in January, and that coincided with DB coach Will Harris leaving the Florida Gators for, you guessed it, the Miami Hurricanes. So Waters follows not far behind his defensive secondary coach. Now, we will see what happens with Waters the rest of the way, but for now, he is a solid commitment to the Miami Hurricanes. All right, let's head to Gainesville. Gators, they land the number one linebacker in the On3 rankings. Isaiah Williams committed to UF on Friday. Now, his recruitment is, stay with me here, November of 23, Isaiah Williams, newly acquainted to this recruiting stuff, he commits to Louisville. This is almost 2 years ago now. He makes that commitment to Louisville. Then last April, he makes his commitment to Syracuse. He ends that commitment in the summer and decides to commit to the in-state Florida State Seminoles. He did that in September of 2024. Then, I guess he watched the Seminole season. He decommits from FSU in November. Can't really blame him there. Then he had about 5 official visits set for the summer. He said he was going to take those visits, probably make a decision, but instead he makes a commitment to the Florida Gators. Now, Williams is a very talented prospect, and there's reasons to think that this might stick. Williams, well, he's already committed to a bunch of other programs that he knows he doesn't want to go to, and now he's committed to the Florida Gators, who is the program that is about 45 minutes from his home, Leesburg, Florida, right outside Gainesville, maybe even less than 45 minutes to Gainesville. So we will see what happens with Isaiah Williams, but he tells our Hayes Fawcett that those 5 official visits he was going to take during the summer, those are off. So that is a good sign if you're a Florida Gator fan and want this commitment to stick. We will check back on this recruitment in a few weeks and see if those visits are still off. All right. USC-Oregon recruiting rivalry heats up. Oregon offensive tackle commit Cody Green schedules an official visit to USC for June 20th. The number 9 ranked prospect overall, the number 3 offensive tackle in the country, is just the latest recruit to get caught up in this USC-Oregon battle that we see raging on the recruiting trail right now. USC, with the number 2 class in America, nipping at the heels of Oregon, who now has the number 1 class in America. Oregon has a lot going for him. USC has a lot going for him. 2 rivals just throwing haymakers on the recruiting trail. This is going to be a fun one to watch, especially as we get into the summer. And we already see Cody Green going to take a visit to USC. We'll see if Oregon strikes back, gets any USC commits on their campus. This one's heating up. Speaking of heating up, Clemson is landing commits. This weekend, Dabo Swinney rolled out the orange carpet. It's probably not red. Rolled out the carpet, whatever color it is, for the Elite Retreat. And already it is bringing in commitments. Ready for this? Wide receiver Connor Salomon, he committed. Wide receiver Neem Burrows, he committed. Offensive tackle Adam Guthrie, he committed. And on Sunday, there could be more. Offensive tackle Grant Wise. That was 4 commitments as of the taping of this show, just coming from the Elite Retreat. And with that, Clemson is now a top 10 recruiting program. They move up to number 9 in the On3 industry rankings. And you know what? I know Clemson's not done. I think we'll probably see more commitments, whether it's today, tomorrow, down the road. There will be more commitments from some of these recruits that are on campus right now at Clemson. A big weekend in the making. And there you go. That's all I got right now for the biggest developments. You guys let me know. Did I miss anything? Is there something that you guys were tracking? Let me know. Comment section below. Let's talk some Tennessee recruiting. Knoxville was the spot to be coming out of the dead period when it comes to visits. Now, it was a small group that was on campus, but Tennessee fans pay attention because every prospect that was on campus this weekend is a priority for Josh Heupel and his staff. And in this video, on a weekend of important targets on campus, we are talking about the most important. That's it. Number one wide receiver, Tristen Keys. He's uncommitted, but we're going to find out how Tennessee did during this visit. I got Matt Ray from VolQuest, and we're going to break it all down. But Tennessee fans, do me a favor real quick and hit subscribe to the On3 Recruits channel. This is the best recruiting channel on all of YouTube. All right, let's bring in Matt Ray from VolQuest. Busy day out there in Knoxville. How many days is Tristen Keys in town for?
So Tristen Keys will be in town through tomorrow afternoon, Monday afternoon. He will have a chance to watch second practice of the spring for Josh Heupel and company as things can kind of continue to intensify on the practice field there in Knoxville.
All right. Now, I saw you got a chance to speak with him yesterday about halfway through this visit. What's he been doing, and how does it sound like it's going?
Yeah, so he got into town yesterday afternoon and immediately went over to the basketball game and had a chance to take in the senior day festivities as Tennessee was able to put South Carolina away after a pretty competitive game in the first half. So he kind of jumped right into full visit mode once he got there, got around Josh Heupel, Kelsey Pope, Joey Halsley, and the Tennessee coaching staff, as well as Faison Brandon and Tyreek King and Carson Snead. So Tennessee's high-powered offensive commitments were back in town, and they wanted to be there, be around Tristen Keys, and that's kind of how the weekend kicked off for him. And he was all smiles when I had a chance to catch up with him yesterday afternoon.
All right. We talk a lot of Tristen Keys on this channel, whether it be with insiders like yourself, with Chad Simmons, Steve Wiltfong, and everybody, they might say it a little differently, but everybody says, Tennessee's the team to beat. They're out front. They have the edge. What do you think? Where do you think Tennessee stands right now in this whole Tristen Keys recruitment? And also, when do you think it's going to come to an end?
Yeah, so I think for Tristen, when I talked to him multiple times in the fall, the idea was to have a decision out of the way by now. He wanted to have this thing knocked out by the 1st of March initially. But when you're the number one wide receiver in the country, that's really not easy to do. You have to start having schools pull you in different directions as more focus turns into the 2026 class. But after 2 visits in basically 4 weeks for Tristen Keys to Knoxville last fall, Tennessee had obviously solidified themselves as a contender and put themselves in a really good spot. In talking with him yesterday, that relationship's only continued to grow. Tennessee's continued to do everything very well in this recruitment. They've connected with him well. His bond with Faison Brandon is really key. That's something that's really important to him. And I continue to feel like Tennessee's right at the top or in that top group of schools for him as we start to head toward official visits. Obviously, he's going to take a handful of visits again this spring, but I think official visits are going to be the key in this one. As he gets back, he gets one final look at these campuses, I think he would like to make a decision ahead of his senior season there in Hattiesburg, and we'll kind of see where it goes. Again, number one wide receiver, those guys are going to be recruited to the finish line. So this is a long game for Tristen Keys. No official visits, on the docket to my knowledge to like an Ole Miss right now. But that the in-state schools are not just going to let him ride off quietly into the night. So this is a recruitment that I can see a commitment coming in the summer, but it's obviously going to be the long game as it is for these elite guys.
Yeah. So what's next for Tennessee and Keys? Was this the last visit before those summer official visits, or is there a chance he pops back up in Nashville or Knoxville before then? All right, Inside Scoop listeners, I got to tell you about Rhoback Activewear. There's only one way to describe Rhoback. It's best fit, best feel. I'm wearing it right now. I love it. And for those, if you're not familiar with Rhoback, they are completely changing the game with their incredibly comfortable activewear. Rhoback has released so many items within their new licensed game day collection, and it's our favorite. With novel polo designs, clean hoodies, quarter zip designs for some of your favorite schools, it's definitely worth checking out. So, Nobody else on the market is pairing these level of custom designs with this quality of activewear. Roback's everyday shorts or their Delta Performance pants are the perfect pairing as well. They are both super comfortable. They have an elastic waistband and a great fabric that is made to have the appearance of a nice short look, but the comfort of everyday on the move wear. Roback has also proudly been leading the NIL charge, having signed partnerships with multiple college football stars, past and present, and are becoming the go-to brand for college athletes across this country. So here's what we're going to do. Use promo code JOSH on Roback.com for a generous 20% off all new customers through the end of this week. That's spelled RHOBACK.com, and that's 20% off all performance polos, shorts, and more with promo code JOSH.
I wouldn't rule that out completely yet. Tennessee's done a really good job of getting guys that they prioritize, like Keys, back to campus, as often as they can. You kind of look back at the David Sanders recruitment and what they were able to do with getting him there from Charlotte, 2 times in an 8-day span last cycle. It's a little bit further for Keys coming from Mississippi, but we'll see. Tennessee will certainly work to get him back to campus. But as of now, the next step is the official visit, and that will be during a busy month of June for him.
All right, you mentioned that quarterback Faison Brandon, who's committed to Tennessee, was in town. We know he spent time with Keys. Were there any other guys that he's kind of working on while he was in Knoxville?
Yeah, so for the offensive side of the ball, really yesterday, the uncommitted prospect in town was Tristen Keys. But in talking with Faison Brandon, he said, he kind of laughingly said, "I would need my phone to give you an list of who and all I'm recruiting." But 2 guys he quickly pointed out outside of Keys was Darius Gray, 4-star offensive lineman from up in Virginia, and then 5-star running back Savion Hyder from up in Virginia as well. Faison Brandon has made a strong connection with both of those guys and is recruiting both of those guys heavily to join him in Knoxville.
All right. A lot of intel up on VolQuest as we speak. Tennessee fans, go check it out. There's so much intel coming out of this weekend. But, Matt, since I got you here, what else did you learn from this weekend's visits that Tennessee fans need to know?
Well, I think for me, a big point for this weekend was to kind of see where Tennessee could be with the 2 guys from up north, and Joey O'Brien, 4-star safety, top 100 prospect, and 4-star defensive lineman Damari Simeon. And Tennessee showed really well with both of those guys. They got into town on Friday, stayed through Saturday afternoon, and according to everything that I've gathered, those visits went about as well as they could have gone for Tennessee. Tennessee battling for an official visit with Simeon, and we'll see where that one goes. I would not be shocked to see the Vols get an official visit for the standout defensive lineman from New Jersey. He's kind of hit it off with this Tennessee coaching staff since they offered him during the winter. It was important for him to get back down here once this dead period lifted. He wanted to get a look at Tennessee because of the way that they've recruited him since that offer. And then with O'Brien, he's a guy that's been to campus before, and Tennessee checked on during the contact period, has shown a lot of attention to. It was big for me to see him get back down here, because that kind of showed me he's truly serious about Tennessee, and he said as much himself. The way they've recruited him, they're one of, if not the only school recruiting him to play 3 positions inside the secondary, and he's a big, long defensive back, weighing in around 190 pounds, 6'4.5", and Tennessee's telling him that he can play the safety position, he can play the star position, or he could even play cornerback, and that is something that's appealing to him, and he has already locked in an official visit. So this was another step in the right direction for Tennessee to be in the long game for Joey O'Brien, a guy that's coveted by schools across the country.
All right. Well, Tennessee wasted no time coming out of the dead period to get things popping. Tennessee fans, talk to us. Let us know. How do you guys feel about Tristen Keys? Is Tennessee going to land the number 1 wide receiver in America? Let us know. Let's talk some Michigan recruiting, because the dead period is over. Visits are back on. And guess what? Michigan recruiting is still red hot. We got E.J. Holland on from the Wolverine. We're going to go behind the scenes of some of these major developments that have been going down. But before we do that, Michigan fans, hit subscribe to the On3 Recruits channel. This is the best recruiting channel on all of YouTube, and we want Michigan fans to be a part of it. Go on, hit subscribe. All right, Let's bring in EJ Holland. And EJ, we'll start with some news that you reported this week. Ryder Lyons, 5-star quarterback, is visiting in April. Now, there's been talk, you and I have talked on this channel about Ryder Lyons, but now is he emerging as Michigan's top quarterback target this cycle?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think he's the guy this cycle. The biggest thing with Ryder Lyons is he's an LDS kid, which means he's really strong in his faith. He's going to take a 18-month mission. So that means he's technically part of the 2027 class. So he wouldn't come in until the calendar year of 2027.
Right.
That gives Michigan enough separation between Bryce Underwood and Ryder Lyons to where you don't have back-to-back 5-star quarterbacks, which can often be an issue. Again, by the time Ryder Lyons were to enroll, if he were to side with Michigan, he would be a freshman. Bryce Underwood would be a junior. So again, enough of a gap there. But yeah, I mean, he's the top guy. New offensive coordinator Chip Lindsey went out to see him in the offseason. So did head coach Sharon Moore. They absolutely love his game. I mean, when you turn on the tape, I think the biggest drawback with Ryder is just how will he bounce back from that mission, but he just checks all the boxes. I mean, he's kind of a JJ McCarthy type of player in the sense that he brings a lot of athleticism. He can create in and out of the pocket. He has the ability to run. He has great arm talent. I mean, he checks all those boxes. Seems like a natural born leader as well. Great character kid. So I think Michigan really has emerged as a strong contender here. Our Ethan McDowell, who's our other recruiting reporter, actually broke this news, and he caught up with Ryder's mother, who had some great things to say about Michigan as well. They're really looking forward to making that first trip to Ann Arbor on April 12th. Now, since Ryder Lyons is technically a 2027, Michigan obviously has some other options at quarterback in 26, including Brady Smigel, who is set to make a visit this spring. But I think Ryder Lyons is the clear top of the board guy. And I think Michigan is building up some momentum there. I still think he's going to be a bit of a tough pool, especially with his connections to USC, his brother playing there right now. But overall, I think Michigan's done a fantastic job here in recent months, and we'll know a lot more coming out of his visit.
Yeah, and I agree. Like you said, it makes a lot of sense with where Bryce Underwood is, and if Lyons comes in as a potential 2027 quarterback, that kind of puts that year distance between the two. Works out perfectly almost for both parties. So we'll continue to watch that develop. I want to ask you about a couple key positions. I'm going to give you two names, and you tell me who Michigan is in better shape with, or you could say both if you think Michigan is going to land both. So we'll start. This is a good one. We'll start with the offensive line. Felix Ojo or Jackson Cantwell?
I think right now Michigan is in a better spot with Jackson Cantwell. I think that Michigan has had more discussions there, more pertinent discussions there. I think it's no secret that NIL is going to be a factor with Jackson Cantwell, hence why he went out and hired, mega agent Drew Rosenhaus and is working with his agency. So, yeah, I think those conversations have already started. If you were to ask me where does Michigan sit, within Jackson Cantwell's top schools, I would probably say top 3. I think Michigan has shown that it's willing to invest in the offensive line. It's a big priority for Sharon Moore, who has an offensive line background, having played the position and led Michigan to back-to-back Joe Moore Awards while he was the offensive line coach. They want to continue to pour resources into the offensive line to protect their investment from last cycle, which is obviously Bryce Underwood, the number 1 overall player in America from the previous cycle, and obviously the best quarterback in the country. So they want to continue to beef up the offensive line. They did that last cycle with Andrew Babalola and Ty Haywood. They want to continue that trend here with Jackson Cantwell. So I think those that were involved in those deals with Bryce Underwood and Ty Haywood will be actively involved with Jackson Cantwell. Now, could they spend on Felix Ojo? That's certainly a possibility. Look, nobody was talking about Ty Haywood at this point last cycle. I think Michigan is already in a better position right now than they were with Ty Haywood this time last year. Ojo is already set to make an official visit in the summer. He's been to campus before. He actually made an unofficial visit last summer. So there's legitimate interest there as well. So we could see the answer to this question shift a little bit, but I think both recruitments will definitely require some spending on the NIL front.
All right, moving on to running back, Savion Hyder or Javian Osborne?
That's a tough one, man. I mean, I've put in a pick for Osborne. I haven't done so for Hyder, but I think Michigan leads for both right now.
I agree with you.
I really do think it's realistic. It was funny. Our Wolverine account put out a tweet about Savion Hyder becoming a 5-star, and Javian Osborne's father commented on it with the eyeball emoji. And I think some people have speculated that they might not want to team up, but then Savion Hyder's mentor came in and started interacting with him, and it seems like behind the scenes they would be okay with teaming up. I mean, I've talked to his father quite a bit. I've talked to Hyder's family. They have no problem with it. They spent some time together at Under Armour All America Week. They visited Michigan together in the past. So that would be, the dream duo for Michigan running backs coach Tony Alford, who, is a savvy veteran on the recruiting trail. He's built up terrific relationships with both of these guys. I think with, Savion, there's still some concern about the other finalists. Obviously, you have Georgia, which he's visited quite a bit recently. Tennessee and Ohio State are set to get him in this spring. But his longest standing relationship is with Tony Alford. And I think Michigan will make NIL not really a factor in this recruitment. And if it does come down to relationships, I like Alford's chances with Hyder. And on the flip side of the coin, Texas and Michigan were considered the top schools for Javian Osborne. Obviously, Texas lost its running backs coach. So, the new running backs coach, there was a bit of an issue there. Long story short, Texas was eliminated. That official visit got canceled. Could Texas come back into the picture? Maybe. But I think right now all signs point to Michigan, and Javian's set to make a multi-day spring visit at the end of the month. And that's something we're watching very closely.
All right, let's flip over to the defensive side of the ball. DB Jaziel Hart or Elbert Hill?
Yeah, I think Michigan's definitely in a better spot with Jaziel Hart. I know the On3 RPM says Penn State because, he made a visit to Penn State in the winter. There was a lot of buzz around the Nittany Lions, and then that momentum kind of dropped off. Michigan made an in-home visit. Sharon Moore stopped by his school. I think they've rebuilt a lot of momentum with Hart. They're set to get him for his last official visit, June 20th, which is Victor's weekend, Michigan's big weekend, where he can be around some of the guys in the class. That's usually the big commit weekend. He's set to make a decision on July 3rd, which is just a couple of weeks after that. And I have reason from talking to Jaziel here recently to believe that Michigan is ahead of Penn State. I really do think Michigan is in the lead in this recruitment right now. But Penn State will continue to be a factor there that we are watching closely. Notre Dame just jumped in the mix with an offer as well. So, yeah, I mean, I think right now Michigan has the momentum. We're watching some of the other contenders with Elbert Hill. They're trying to just claw their way back into this recruitment. It'll be interesting to see how much Michigan really goes all in with NIL on corner if they decide to do that, just because they already landed a top shelf corner last cycle in Shamari Earls. Will they put up NIL for an elite corner this cycle, which will probably be required for a guy like Elbert Hill? I'm not so sure. I did catch up with Elbert Hill a couple of weeks ago in Atlanta. He told me he's still planning a spring visit to Michigan, but I think other schools like Ohio State and Oregon and Alabama are ahead of Michigan in that race.
All right, let's go into the trenches. We got defensive lineman Aiden Harris or Damari Simeon.
I definitely think Damari Simeon there. He's a top 100 prospect for On3, underrated by some of the other services. He actually hasn't been to campus, but Michigan's just done a really fantastic job of recruiting him. He will make his way this spring. He recently told me he set up his spring visit. They'll get him in for an official visit as well after the unofficial. So, yeah, I mean, Penn State has been kind of considered the leader there, but I think he's really bonding well with Lou Esposito, Michigan's defensive line coach, who is also from New Jersey, and head coach Jerome Moore, who made a stop there during the winter contact period. So they've made him a priority. He feels like a priority. I think Michigan is moving in the right direction in that recruitment. With Aiden Harris, I think they're moving in the wrong direction in that recruitment. I would say Michigan's definitely on the outside looking in there. So Demario Simeon's the easy pick in that one.
All right, wide receiver, Christian Ward or Nayland Scott?
Oh, man. I really like that duo. They're both out of Georgia. They both play on the same 7-on-7 team, similar to Savion Hyder and Javian Osborne. I'd love to see both of them land in the class. That one's tough. I think Michigan probably has more of a lead for Christian Ward right now. I think Michigan may value Nayland Scott a little bit more. Christian Ward will be on campus for the first day of spring practice, March 18th. If they decide to go all in on Christian Ward, I do think that he likely ends up in the class. He has some Midwest ties as well, has a bunch of family from the Midwest, including his uncle, who's from Chicago and also serves as his NIL agent. He has great relationships with the University of Michigan. And on the flip side of the coin, Nayland Scott set to come in on April 5th. I think Michigan can make a big move there. He's been on campus in the past. I actually believe he was on campus for the Texas game in September. Michigan wants to continue to add size to the wide receiver room. Both of these guys, Christian Ward being an athletic body, 6'3", 180, Nayland Scott being around 6'2.5", 200 plus pounds. I mean, both of them really fit Michigan's need. Again, I would probably lean Christian Ward right now, but that's kind of a breakdown of where that situation is.
All right, let's wrap it up with the tight end position. Matt Ludwig or Brock Harris?
Yeah, that's a really good one. I think Michigan's in a better spot with Matt Ludwig right now, but starting off with Brock Harris, I mean, I think Michigan's done a great job of recruiting him. Basically the entire offensive staff went down to see Brock during the winter contact period. Could maybe help to have Brock and Ryder Lyons talk a little bit. They're of the same faith. Brock is also technically a 2027 kid. He does plan to take a mission. So, that's kind of a little bit of an interesting situation because Michigan needs an elite tight end this cycle. They don't want to just wait for a 2027 because they missed out on Andrew Olesh. Remember, Olesh was a 5-star on 3. He flipped to Penn State on National Signing Day, or just days after National Signing Day during the winter signing period. So they really have a need for an athletic pass-catching tight end. So they'll continue to recruit Brock Harris hard and understand what his situation is. But Matt Ludwig has really emerged as the top guy. I recently put in a prediction for him, joining our national analyst, Steve Wiltfong. I think that Michigan has the lead going into the spring. They are set to get him in for a multi-day spring unofficial visit. We're watching that one closely as well. Michigan also set to get him in for an official visit. There are some other contenders like Texas Tech and Texas A&M, Georgia, a couple others that are still working their way in there. But I think Michigan has done a really good job in this recruitment. On top of that, Michigan's done a great job of recruiting in obscure areas. They landed Colston Loveland out of Idaho and turned him into a first-round pick. I think they could do the same with a guy like Matt Ludwig, who actually is originally from Idaho, despite being, a Montana recruit. He grew up watching Colston Loveland play high school football, so that's someone he looks up to, and that's definitely a big selling point for Michigan.
All right, so Michigan spring football starts in about 10 days. So when it comes to recruiting, what is going to be the next big visit weekend for the Wolverines?
Yeah, I've seen other schools already have some big visit weekends. Michigan doesn't start practice until March 18th, so that's why you haven't seen a lot of guys on Michigan's campus. I feel like we've been reporting, visits left and right, but they just haven't happened yet. So March 22nd will be the big first big recruiting weekend, and I mean it's a really loaded weekend. You have 5-star offensive tackle Jackson Cantwell, who we just talked about, one of the top overall priorities. You have top 100 edge Jake Krull, who is one of the best players I've seen at that position this cycle. Had a chance to see him live a couple of times. You have Brody Jennings on 300 cornerback, who's committed to Michigan, but has official visits set with Alabama and Georgia. I believe he was just at Florida this weekend, so they're working hard to keep him in the fold. Even in the 27 class, you have a top 100 edge in Antoine Higgins, several other guys as well. So yeah, Michigan putting together a really strong weekend for March 22nd. And, one note there, Matt Ludwig, who we just talked about, his visit will be wrapping up on March 22nd. He actually arrives a couple of days before that. So he's staying on campus 3 days. Again, that's something we're really monitoring closely. So yeah, once practices start rolling March 18th into that 22nd weekend, Michigan will have a lot of big time visitors on campus. And of course, we'll have the scoop, the inside scoop over at the Wolverine.
All right, DJ, great stuff. We appreciate you coming on. It's an exciting time to follow Michigan recruiting. Let's talk some Oregon Ducks recruiting. After Dan Lanning locked in with a brand new contract, now it's time to go recruit. I mean, not that Lanning ever stops recruiting, but this weekend, coming off that newly inked deal, number 1 quarterback Jared Curtis is in Eugene for a very special visit. We got Max Torres from Scoop Duck on the show. We're going to go behind the scenes this important visit. But before we get going, Oregon fans, do me a favor. Hit subscribe to the On3 Recruit channel. This is the best recruiting channel on all of YouTube. All right, let's bring in Max Torres from Scoop Duck. And Max, I was thinking about this Jared Curtis visit. It very well could be the last face-to-face contact that Curtis has with Oregon and the staff. What do you think the Ducks need to accomplish this weekend?
I think with this recruitment, you have to lean into your body of work and your resume. A big talking point, of course, has been the work that Oregon has done with quarterbacks in recent years, especially under Will Stein, who also got a little bit of a contract extension on the heels of that Lanning news. So I think that's a great development. You want to be able to sell to whatever degree you're able to that he's going to be here when Jared Curtis potentially comes to Oregon. Yeah. And just look, I guess you could compare what Oregon and Georgia have done at the quarterback position in recent years. Not that Oregon is necessarily one to negatively recruit another team, but it does feel like Oregon has the edge at quarterback right now, at least in recent years, of course, with 2 Heisman finalists and Bo Nix and Dylan Gabriel at the quarterback position. So I think that's great. And then you also have to obviously win over the family. And I think that's going to be a crucial component here, wherever Curtis ends up. But when you're battling distance and being all the way on the West Coast, you got to win over the family for sure if you want to get that commitment.
Yeah, is that why you think Jared Curtis is the only recruit on campus in Eugene this weekend?
I think it's certainly part of it. That has to be by design for this Oregon staff, so they were able to go one-on-one with him every day, kind of make this a tailor-made visit to whatever he wants it to be. I've certainly heard that from other sources I've spoken with in the past on Oregon recruiting and kind of how that was part of what they did with DJ Pickett when they were still recruiting him super heavily out of Florida. We know he ended up at LSU, but I think that being able to go one-on-one with him this weekend, just go all in too, not just one-on-one, but all in on their recruiting efforts with really their top quarterback target in the 2026 class year. Of course, we know about Ryder Lyons as well, but It does seem like I get the impression that Curtis is the bigger priority between the two. And I think that's because he would be getting to college sooner than Lyons would.
Yeah, I agree. Lots of factors that go into any decision. You hit on a couple important ones. You got family, you got QB production, but nobody really knows how much a prospect weights each one. So that being said, how much do you think location factors in? Because Nashville, it's only about 3.5 hours from Athens. It's a lot further to Eugene, but how much is location playing into this decision?
I think it's playing a relatively significant role. The thing that we have to look at here, Josh, is that distance could mean something different now in March than it does in December, because you can commit to a school, be like, oh yeah, I'm all on board, no issues. And then once it comes time to put pen to paper, you're feeling the weight of that distance. You're feeling the weight of missing mom's cooking or whatever it might be from home. So I think that it certainly factors into it here. I know an interesting part with NIL discussion and some of the things that I've learned with Oregon's recruiting efforts. I know every school does this, but for Oregon in particular, I think they do have to have that conversation about how often are my parents going to be able to come out to these games? How often can I see my family? And obviously that helps with the Big Ten move because they'll be playing closer to Nashville, right? If you look at Curtis as a Duck. But I think that distance certainly plays a factor here, and it's no shock, it's no surprise, nothing new that Oregon does not have that on their side here with another elite guy from the Southeast.
Yeah, and maybe that's why they brought the family in all by themselves this weekend to give them a tour so they could get comfortable with the city of Eugene, not just the school. So we'll see how that goes. What's next for Curtis? Is he going to take an unofficial visit to Georgia next, and then those planned officials are going to go down?
That's what it looks like is the plan for Curtis and his camp is going out to Athens for a trip almost immediately after, from what I've been able to tell, this trip to Oregon, a multi-day unofficial visit. I think that's one of the details that kind of piques my interest here with Curtis is that I think it's like a 4 or 5 day unofficial visit out to Eugene. Definitely more than your typical 2. So yeah. I think that's the case for Georgia as well. And I think that would also lend credence to this belief, this growing belief that Jared Curtis may not make it to those official visits scheduled to Oregon and Georgia in June, and really makes us think that a decision could be coming sooner rather than later. So sounds like he'll be wheels up back to Athens after this trip to Eugene. And for Oregon fans and the Oregon staff, they hope that they lead when he leaves campus.
Yeah, and I'm not nearly as close to this recruitment as you are, as Rusty Menzel is, but just watching it from afar, it definitely feels like it's going to be these 2 unofficial visits and then a decision. I think, this is just my opinion, I think we get a decision from Jared Curtis within the next 3 weeks, I would say, maybe. Are you getting that feeling?
Yeah. It could be. I think that these recruitments have a way of speeding themselves up, especially with Curtis being the only guy on campus. Both of these schools, I'm sure, want to be getting this wrapped up sooner rather than later. Of course, you're not going to slow play a recruitment like this just because it's such a crucial position. But that's definitely the growing feeling here is that it seems like a decision is coming sooner rather than later for Curtis. And that would honestly help all parties involved here. I don't think anyone necessarily gains anything in particular by drawing this one out.
All right. Hypothetically speaking, Curtis is on that Ducks commit list before the summer. Who are the top targets right now at wide receiver that you think this Curtis commitment could help with if it goes down that way?
The wide receiver position is an interesting one to look at right now, especially with regard to Jared Curtis's recruitment and new wide receiver coach Ross Douglas coming over from Syracuse. So it seems like we're still kind of evaluating the board here, Josh, but the main names that you got to watch, of course, at the top of the list is Chris Henry Jr. out of Mater Dei here in Southern California. I'm well aware of him, but spent a lot of time around that program. Also at Mater Dei is Caden Dixon Wyatt, who's originally from Northern California. I thought that was a big part of why they were in such a good spot under Junior Adams, who's also from Northern California, but we know that he's over with the Cowboys now. And then the other third name that I think is certainly worth watching here is New York wide receiver Messiah Hampton, who was named On3's MVP at the Under Armour Miami camp not too long ago. So he is really showing that he can hold his own with anyone. He was also the Buffalo Bills representative at the Nike Next Ones event in New Orleans before the Super Bowl. So this is a guy who has on numerous occasions, 7-on-7, camp circuit, whatever it is, he's shown that he can hold his own against the best in the country. And that relationship with Ross Douglas is certainly carrying over from his time at Syracuse, also out there in the Northeast. So I'm just excited to see how this board grows and evolves, because Chris Henry Jr. has kind of said in no uncertain words that as long as Heartline's there in Columbus, he's solid with the Buckeyes, but that doesn't mean Oregon's going to stop trying.
Yeah, we saw what Oregon pulled in last season at the wide receiver position. Let's see what they can do this year if they land Jared Curtis. I got high expectations. All right. One last thing before I let you go. One of the themes on this channel has been Oregon versus USC on the recruiting trail. They are just duking it out. And I saw that offensive tackle Cody Green, the elite offensive tackle who's committed to Oregon out of Mater Dei High School, is setting up a visit to USC this summer. So with USC's kind of surge in recruiting right now, is Green going to be a tough one for Oregon to hold on to?
I think you could say he's going to be a tough one to hang on to, but at the same time, I wouldn't necessarily say that I'm worried about a big flip here. Of course, USC is going to get him on campus because he's local. He's at Mater Dei. Lincoln Riley and the staff know how important it is to get back into Mater Dei. That's why we're seeing all this smoke around Tamuhini Tapui, the Oregon defensive line commit, that is giving the Trojans a big look here in the 2026 class. But Green's been committed to Oregon since August, and this staff has done a tremendous job with the relationships in this recruitment, and his love for Oregon really dates back quite a while. So the Ducks are going to have to hold off the Trojans and the Longhorns here, with Texas also getting an official visit. But right now, I think he's one of those commitments that I think is most solid with the Ducks. And a big part of that is because of the body of work under Alik Terry, and that speaks for itself. I think it's a different situation in LA right now with the offensive line compared to Oregon, but that doesn't mean that Oregon's going to have to do anything different than what they've been doing. You got to just keep your pedal to the metal and keep recruiting him as if he's uncommitted.
All right. Well, this weekend, it's all about number one quarterback Jared Curtis. And Duck fans, we want to hear from you. Drop your predictions. Where is Jared Curtis going to commit? Let us know. Let's talk some Oregon football, and we're talking who will be the former five-star recruit that has a breakout season this year for the Oregon Ducks. Dan Lanning sure has been recruiting a lot of them, and today we're going to name that breakout five-star, but also a former three-star recruit that is about to outplay his high school ranking. And for this video, I got On3 National Scout Cody Belair here to break it all down with me. But first, Oregon fans, hit that subscribe button. We are growing this channel. We need Oregon Duck fans to be a part of it, so jump on board, hit subscribe. All right, let's bring on National Scout Cody Belair. And Cody, let's start at the five-star ranking. There's a bunch of them on this roster, so which former five-star do you think is going to have a breakout year for the Ducks?
Yeah, Josh, with the Oregon Ducks, this is going to be a five-star double dip, because I think these two players will have breakout seasons in 2025 if they can help lift each other up to reach those new heights. And that would be former five stars Dante Moore and Evan Stewart. And starting with Dante Moore, I mean, he transfers out of UCLA after his freshman season, which was a bit of a roller coaster, throwing 11 touchdowns to 9 interceptions in his 9 games as a true freshman with a 53% completion percentage. That's not going to get it done. So he decides to transfer to Oregon and sit behind Dillon Gabriel for a year, which may have just been the best thing for him in his career, because it allowed him to see what a seasoned Heisman caliber quarterback does to prepare and how he sees the game. Dillon Gabriel is a guy that's seen more college ball than pretty much anyone that's ever suited up in a game before. So if any of that rubs off on Dante Moore, paired up with his natural arm talent, then the Ducks should be excited to watch him throw dots to none other than Evan Stewart, who is really in a put-up-or-shut-up type of season. The expectations for him were sky high coming out of high school, and even though things didn't work out at Texas A&M, there was hope going into his first year at Oregon, and he put up some strong numbers, but he did battle some injuries and ultimately ended up playing second fiddle to future NFL draft pick Tez Johnson. So this is the moment for him to break out and turn into this number one wideout that everyone expected out of him coming out of high school.
Yeah, everybody was on Evan Stewart. So we'll see. Maybe Dante Moore and Stewart can be that combo for the Ducks that they need so much. All right, let's talk about a former three-star that we think is going to outplay that high school ranking this year.
Yeah, I think the thing that Oregon does such a good job of is developing these three-star players. However, Josh, I'm not sure how many folks were tuned in to Nevada football last year, but they had an absolute freak of nature starting at left tackle this past season. And the Oregon Ducks landed him out of the winter transfer portal, and his name is Isaiah World out of San Diego, California. And I got to be honest, I do not know how a guy like this ends up at Nevada coming out of high school. No offense to Nevada at all. But my goodness, this cat is a total creature. I mean, he's a legit 6'7 plus, 305 pounds, and is one of the smoothest movers at tackle I've maybe ever seen.
Wow.
Coming out of the transfer portal. I mean, this guy had such a strong basketball background coming out of high school, which shows in his pass sets because his footwork is borderline flawless. And look, I know losing Josh Connerly to the draft hurts. But, folks, I think Isaiah World is going to be a name people are talking about this time next year as a potential high draft pick in the 2026 draft. So, Oregon fans, do not worry, because Dante Moore will have his blind side secured in his first year as the Oregon Ducks starting quarterback.
Exciting times out there in Eugene. Duck fans, talk to us. Who is your pick for the 5-star breakout, for the former 3-star to outplays ranking? You guys let us know. Comment section below.